and today we're talking about living with abused kids.
We'll start the conversation now, right here on Foster Life. Courtney here today on Monday, Foster Life. Courtney's always with us on Monday. Tristan's supposed to be with us, but he's running a little late. I think he got stuck in traffic or something. So we decided to start the show without him, and that's okay. We can do that. So today we're talking about abused youth, and April is, what is it?
Child Abuse Awareness Month.
Okay, what color do you wear for Child Abuse Awareness Month?
Blue.
Blue. So that's something that you can do, with your office or something. Maybe you want to recognize Child Abuse Awareness Month and bring some recognition. And maybe on a Friday at your company or where you work, you can all wear blue, and that gets a conversation going as well. So when we talk about abuse, Courtney, obviously there's lots of different ways that children can be abused. Tell me, what are some of the different ways that we see children that come into the system that are abused?
So there's four main categories.
Okay.
I think we've talked about that a little bit before.
Uh-huh.
There's physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, and then neglect.
Okay. So neglect actually falls into the abuse, and I know that if you watched on Wednesday, we'll be talking about neglect. And we kind of separated that because there's lots of different ways that kids can be neglected as well.
Right.
So we've kind of, on Wednesday, Tristan and I are going to really hammer that out. So let's talk about the other three. So when we talk about physical abuse, what types of things might we see with the kids that come into care? Courtney used to be an investigator in a different state, so she's seen a lot of this stuff. And so she's going to really help us kind of knock this out today. So kids that have been physically abused, what might we see?
There are a lot of different signs and symptoms, if that's what you want to call them,
Right.
that can indicate physical abuse in the home. A child might be really afraid to tell you that something's happened.
Right.
If they break a lamp, they might lie about it, hide it, hide in a closet, not tell you about it at all. They might be more apt to flinch away if you raise your voice, or if you raise your hand quickly.
Uh-huh.
All of those things are indicators. There are several others, such as they can do some self-harming things where they are leaving bruises on themselves. They can physically act out on other people. They might even have you physically act out what's happened to them, which is actually not a bad thing. That's a really great way for them to use that trauma and show you what's happened to them so that they can work through it. But those are some things you might see.
So on the abused children, because again, we were amateurs when we started doing this foster journey. Amateurs, big time. And so the kids that wet the bed, are you going to see that with the abused kids as well?
You might see it. You're more likely to see it in sexual abuse cases, but that's not to say that you wouldn't see it in a child who's been physically abused.
Right.
The number one thing about that is generally it wouldn't happen every night.
Okay.
If it's happening every night, this is a medical issue and we need to see a doctor.
Right. And that's with any of our conversations that we do. Talk to your therapist, talk to your doctor. But we're trying to give you some ideas as to what these kids might look like when they're coming into your home, because what you don't want to do is, Joey, I told you you need to go to the bathroom before you go to bed, and I can't believe that you wet the bed again. We don't want to do that.
Yeah, that's only going to essentially make the problem worse.
Right.
Shaming them, first of all, shame is not something that we're ever meant to feel as
Right.
children. We shouldn't ever be shamed for anything that happens in that particular area of life. So you're only going to be shaming them, it's only going to be making the problem worse, and they're more likely to hide it when it does happen, so not tell you, sleep in it for days at a time,
Yeah.
maybe pick up those sheets and hide them under the bed, and then suddenly you have this very strong urine smell.
Right.
These are all things, the best thing to do would be say, Joey, I'm so sorry that you wet the bed.
Yep.
Let's pull off these sheets. Let's get some
Yep.
clean sheets on here. It's not that expensive to go out and buy a plastic mattress protector and some pull-ups. I mean, they make pull-ups for kids and adults alike
Yep.
for them to sleep in. Just
What I like to tell them is 3 things. Number 1, you're safe with me, so you can tell me anything, and it's going to be okay. 2, you're sorry that it happened. And 3, it's no big deal. We're going to get this all fixed, and no problem, and we're going to move on.
Yeah, but really normalize it. Everybody has a day where they've wet the bed. It's not that big of a deal. Let's try again tomorrow. It's gonna be okay.
You know something weird, though, that I find interesting? Every older teen that's come to our house, within the first week has wet the bed. And I know all of their stories, and some of them didn't come from abuse. They came from neglect, or they came from other situations. But every single one of my older teens have wet the bed within that first couple of weeks of being in the home.
Yeah, and that can be just disorientation to where the bathroom is at night. So one of the things you can do with that is just kind of leave the bathroom light on, leave the bedroom door open, not a big deal. Make sure you walk them through the home and show them where the bathroom is. Even do it with the lights kind of dimmed a little so they can guide themselves to the bathroom. It also is just, I'm in a new place. I'm scared. This is unfamiliar. I don't know what's going to happen today.
And sometimes homes that are dark, I don't care what age they are, they're scary.
Yeah.
And in our home, we live in a really big home, and they might have just been scared to get out of the bunk and go across the house to the bathroom, and so they had an accident. You don't know what the case may be. But the big thing is we don't want to shame them for doing it. When we come back, we're going to talk about sexual abuse right here on Foster Life.
Foster TV is looking for 12 nonprofits in the United States that serve or work with foster and adopted youth. Send us a short story or email about how you support the community.
Send your story today.
Welcome back to Foster Life. It's Monday. We're kicking off the week here.
We are.
And April is
Child Abuse Awareness.
Child Abuse Awareness Month.
He'll get it today, folks.
Right.
Don't worry.
Yeah, I have so much stuff going in my mind when we do these shows, and I know that we have to go this direction and that direction, and so sometimes those little things don't stick. Child Abuse Awareness Month, April, blue. You can wear blue
Yes.
this month to remember those that have been abused, and remember that it is still a very active problem in America. And although we don't want to see any of that ever happen to any kids, it still happens, and there's kids that come into custody every day because of abuse. So the one thing that I wanted to just kind of back up on, so we're talking about physical abuse. If you get a child in the home and they're afraid to go into a bedroom alone, or they're afraid to go to the bathroom alone, or they're afraid to go anywhere alone, maybe the garage, that might be an indicator that those are places that they were abused.
Yep.
And so, again, you want to encourage them, you want to be supportive of them. Obviously, we don't want to go to the bathroom with them unless they're a small child. But you can also stand out in front of the door, encourage them to lock the door. And then what I always tell my kids, because I've had kids that are really afraid of the bathroom, and I always tell them, nobody is ever going to come into the bathroom while you're in there. One. And two, you can lock the door, and this is your safe place. This home is safe. Nothing is going to ever happen in the bathroom, the bedroom, the garage, wherever that is.
Right.
I'm reminded, we had a young man that lived with us, and at home, we had no problems. He'd go to school, and every day I was taking new clothes to the school because he would wet his pants. And so I was thinking more along the lines of, well, maybe he just wants me to come to the school so he could see me and that type of thing. And the principal actually was really smart in this case, and he said, I don't think that's it. And so he told our young man that was living with us, every time you need to go to the restroom, I'm going to go with you, and I'm going to stand outside the door, and nobody is allowed to be in the restroom except for you. By golly, we never had an accident at school again. His abuse took place in the bathroom by the mom's boyfriend, and he was afraid of bathrooms. But at our house, we didn't see it because he knew we were going to lock the bathroom door. He knew nobody was allowed to go in there, and he trusted that we would never go into the bathroom while he was in there.
Right. Right. It's actually very common for sexual abuse to take place in a bathroom. And that's likely the type of abuse he experienced was sexual abuse.
Right.
And kiddos can have all kinds of different responses when it comes to sexual abuse, but one of them is definitely, there's almost always a bathroom component, whether that's they're unable to hold their bladders, they're unable to hold their feces in, or they purposefully defecate in order to keep people away from them.
Right.
So that's all very good indicator of what has happened to that child.
Right. The biggest advice that I can give from doing this as a foster parent with the sexually abused kids that I've had is to reiterate that this is their safe place. For whatever reason, that brings some kind of comfort to them.
Yeah.
That they're looking for.
Yeah. So just feeling safe, you really reiterate, like, this is a safe place for you. Like, and you have to remember that home is supposed to be safe.
Right.
You know, it's supposed to be a place where you go and no one's going to hurt you there.
Yep.
You know, where you can go to dad or to mom or whoever is there, if it's grandma or aunt, uncle, whoever's taking care of them, and say, I don't feel safe right now, and I don't know why, but they shouldn't take advantage of that situation.
Right.
Also, just reminding them, like, not only is this your safe place, but that's your body. My hands or somebody else's hands don't belong on your body.
Right.
And if anybody ever does that, anybody, I'm the person you can come to and tell. A teacher, a friend, anybody you trust, you can tell.
And I am not a hugger. Okay, so I'm a hugger like if I really know you. So like my kids, they get lots of hugs every day and they get lots of love and attention and that kind of stuff. But if I don't really know you, I'm not a hugger. For you huggers out there, when these kids first come into your home, a really innocent hug could be detrimental to
it can be a really big trigger. So, I mean, I'm not a hugger either, and I'm actually one of those people who it's really good if you ask me, like,
Yeah.
can I give you a hug, or can I, like, wrap my arm around you, like,
Yeah.
I kind of need that reassurance,
Yeah.
and these kids are the same way. They need that,
Yep.
is it okay if I hug you?
Yep.
Is it okay is my arm on your shoulder going to bother
Right.
you? These are all issues of, and in this time of the Me Too movement, it's all issues of consent.
Yep.
And just reinforcing how much consent really is. Anything but yes is a no.
Right. And with our kids, like after they've been with us for a while and they're a part of our family and all of that kind of stuff, we tell our kids, you don't have to ask for a hug or whatever, because we've formed that.
Mm-hmm.
But in the beginning, you always ask. If I have a kid and he's having a rough time and he's crying and he misses mom and dad and grandma and everybody, and we have a really emotional talk, then I'll say, hey, Matt, is it okay if I give you a hug? And then if they want a hug, yeah, that's okay. If they say no, I'll say, is it okay if I shake your hand? And then, they'll usually laugh and shake my hand or whatever. But always asking in the beginning, because you never know what that could do. And I know, as a person who wasn't physically, sexually, mentally abused, sometimes when people come and put their arm around me, I just kind of tense all up, and I'm
It's
just
all
like
about,
kind of,
you just invaded my space.
yeah, just
like,
don't do that. That's okay. I don't know you very well, but as you get in that relationship longer, then you're gonna see it. When we come back, we're gonna talk more about abuse and living with abused children right after this.
Hi, I'm Mitchell. I'm from the Netherlands and we love foster teachers.
There's no fool like an old fool right here on Foster Life. That's what my mom always said. So I don't even know what that means, but there's no fool like an old fool. And it's April Fool's Day, and we are here on Foster Life talking about living with abused children. And so many times these kids that come in, well, most of them that come in have been abused in some way, shape, or form. And we're talking about that today, and it is a little different. And we do have to be careful when we're living with abused children. One of the things that I've learned personally, I love to joke around. I'm the jokester, and I can be funny. My kids say that I should be a comedian, but I have found that I have to be really careful with that. Something that I might say to a child that hasn't been abused that would be totally funny, might not be funny to somebody who has lived through a time of trials and whatever. And sometimes they can think that my sarcasm is an indication that they're gonna whatever. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to be really careful in choosing your words. For instance, I have a 21-year-old, Brian. He's the love of my life.
Yeah.
He's my best friend. I got him when he was almost 18, so we didn't have to parent him a lot. So, we're buddies, and we hang out all the time. He works nights, so he's with me all day, and we're just really good friends. However, one time I told him, this is my house, it's my rules, and you're going to live by my rules. And he took off. He threw the dumpster over in the middle of the street. Trash went everywhere. He took off. Yeah, Brian. Little Brian. So I went and he took off on his bike and I took off in the car and we got down to the park and they had one of those double swings. And so he went and sat on there and I sat by him. And the kid is just crying. And he said, you just said it was your house. And I thought that I was a part of your family and it was our house. And he was so upset. And I had to go back and explain, no, it is your house. And it is our house. But that's something that my dad had always said, and I never really even thought about it. But to him, because he came from neglect, it really ripped his little soul out. And I had to really go back and patch that over and reassure him that this was his home. So you have to be really careful and choose your words wisely, whether you're being sarcastic, you're angry, you're upset. It's okay to be angry and upset. You just got to choose your words wisely because you never know what they've been through.
Right. It's kind of like a broken bone, you know?
Right.
The bone breaks, it then heals, the pain goes away, and all you have is a distant memory of that broken bone and a semblance of what the pain was. But with words, your psyche is so fragile. It's so easy to impact how somebody feels about themselves
Right.
and about their worth with words. And those things stick around. I remember, hearing things from my family about myself.
Right.
And still to this day, I have to look in the mirror and say, you're not that, you're not this, you're not that. And when somebody else maybe says them to me or jokes around and says them to me, I collapse. Like, my whole identity is shattered in that moment. And so being really careful about the words you choose.
Mm-hmm.
And we reinforce this to children, but we don't necessarily reinforce it to adults. About, words are like toothpaste. You can't put it back in once it's out.
Yep.
All you can do is go back and apologize and clean up the mess.
Yep.
And so let's avoid the mess altogether and choose kind words, gentle words that are helpful and healing, and we're not necessarily picking on anyone, and being really careful with sarcasm.
Yeah.
Not everybody gets sarcasm. I'm one of those people as well. I don't always get sarcasm.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I don't know that you're joking with me because of the way I was raised,
Right.
And so you just have to be really careful about what you say to people.
Right. And you can't don't ever, in no circumstance, joke about weight,
Nope.
looks,
Nope.
clothes, anything that has to do with appearance, because that's already been torn down so much. I got a beautiful, and I got a beautiful almost 19-year-old. And when we go to the mall, every girl is checking him out and looking at him and everything. And his self-esteem is so low that he doesn't even see it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so they've already been torn down. We don't ever make fun of their looks, their weight, their height, even the littlest things. Why are your eyes brown? Because you're full of crap. We just don't do that because you never know what that's going to do. Some of the things that would not bother some people might bother
Right.
them.
Right. And it's so hard to know in that case, so when you're talking to a child and all of a sudden they break down, you probably triggered something in them, a memory, a feeling, something that they didn't expect to feel in that moment, and
Right.
now they don't know how to get past it. And in that moment, you'd almost rather them have a broken bone because that's going to heal easier than that word
Right.
that triggered them is.
One thing that I'm reminded of, and he's in the studio with us today, and I'm sure that he's going to be okay if I share something. Are you going to be okay? Yeah. So he said, he just gave me the thumbs up. He said, Dad, you could share it. And my 12-year-old, I thought I really knew him. Inside and out. And then he went to residential this last year to get some help so that we could cope better and we could live a healthier life. And so we dedicated like 9 months to him getting some residential help. And I and my partner went every week to family counseling. What I learned is that although he had been in my home for 2 years, there was a lot of stuff that I didn't know that happened in their home before he came to me. So no matter how much you think you know them, you sometimes don't really know the whole story. And that's why it's important to be careful what you say and how you interact with those kids, no matter if they've been in your home for a couple of months or a couple of years or whatever, because it might take a while for them to tell you. For instance, just this week, one of my boys said, the only thing I've really done with my mom is I've gotten drunk with her quite a few times. Shock! I'd never known that. And he's been adopted for quite a while now. And we have a pretty good relationship. And I just found this out Sunday. If you don't think I was shocked. So my point is that with these neglected and abused children, just always remember you didn't live with them and you didn't walk in those shoes before they came to you.
Right, and you didn't inflict those wounds, but you're certainly going to pay for them.
Right.
No
And
matter what.
the way I look at it, a therapist once told me about therapy, but I look at it this way as a foster dad. He says every time you go to therapy, it's like we rip the scab off and then we scrub it and then you go home for a week and it starts to heal and then we come back the next week and we rip the scab off. And I remember thinking as a young foster parent when I first started, I don't want to be that dad that rips the scab off. I'm going to let the professionals rip the scab off. But I don't want to be the dad that rips the scab off. I want to be the dad that's applying the cream and the ointment, and putting the bandage on it, and helping it to heal.
Yeah.
That's the kind of foster dad I want to be.